year, I remember, this is my, do you remember 2015-16? I remember your little ones as they came into kindergarten. So my first, I was shaking his head, I know. But I'm so excited to see you this morning. I want to get started. We're going to have a hard stop at 9:30 to make sure you can go to where you need to get next. Kristen's going to present this morning and then leave some time for questions at the end. So we welcome you to ask any questions that you might have after she presents. But I'm going to open us in prayer and then I'm going to turn it over to her. So let's go ahead. Lord, in anticipation of this weekend, we give you thanks that by your wounds we are healed, that we walk in freedom of forgiveness through Christ. Thank you for being our God, our Redeemer, our King. Lord, this morning as we gather and we talk about 6th grade and dialectic school for these wonderful students and families, God, we set this before you. We set this time before you. We set these little rising 6th graders before you, Lord. We ask for your blessing, your guidance, your godly wisdom for our parents as they continue to teach them and train them up. And I pray a blessing over the next 3 years in their lives, Lord. I pray for a blessing of friendship and learning and experiencing you. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I don't need a microphone because basketball coach, teacher, mom of 4, 3 boys, so it's crazy loud at my house. And adding the masks this year has created this element of needing to yell so that people can hear you because you have your mask on. So then when I get home and I take my mask off, my kids are like, "Mom, you're screaming." Okay, as long as you hear me. I'm Kristen Plasman. I have worn a lot of hats here at Caldwell. This is my 15th, y'all coming into this room with my 16th year at Caldwell. I started out as just a parent, and I don't want to say just a parent. I was a parent for a lot of years before the Lord asked me to serve here. I have 4 children. My oldest one, Sam, is a sophomore in college, which, I mean, you guys are sitting here thinking, I can't believe my kids are going to middle school, and I'm sitting here saying, I can't believe I'm going to have a junior in college. I mean, I'm not old enough to have a junior in college. And he graduated from here 2 years ago, and then I have a rising senior next year, and I can't believe she's going to be a senior, and then I have a rising junior next year, and then I have a rising 8th grader, so I'm going to be wrapping up. I've done my duty in middle school, y'all, as parents. So I have been there, done it 4 times. I've seen a lot of things with my own kids. And then the Lord called me when Charlie was in kindergarten to serve here in the math department. I have a degree in math from Davidson College. Played basketball there, got a degree in math there, and then love the South. I'm from Pennsylvania to begin with, and stayed down here, got married, had our kids and planted in Greensboro, and when he called me here with Charlie in kindergarten, I served as a math teacher up in the rhetoric school for several years, and then he asked me to serve in the middle school. And so when I tell people I'm a math teacher, middle school principal, you can imagine the looks that I get, like, you're crazy, girl. And but I love it. I love that I'm still in the classroom a little bit. I still teach a senior calculus class, which I love, and I say, because I am a middle school principal, it is the one predictable hour of my day. I go into the classroom, I know what's going to happen, and then I leave, and then who knows what's going to happen in middle school. But I have been serving in the middle school role for 6 years now, and every day is a new day. I never know what's going to happen when I get to school, and I am constantly laughing because middle school kids just come up with the craziest things, and they're just so fun. There's just this energy, and I'm so thankful that we've been on campus this year to have that energy. Last year, middle school principal wasn't nearly as fun from about May 13th until June 1st, and so God is super good to allow us to be here this year. So I know some of you, but a lot of you are new faces, so middle school is kind of a new thing for you, and I know it can be really intimidating, but I'm here to say, don't be intimidated. Embrace it for what it is. It is a wild ride. It is emotional. They're going to do crazy things. They're going to push your boundaries, and they're going to see if that boundary moves or not. And they're just like, sometimes they just push it to see if it moves. They're like, oh yeah, it moves, okay. Sometimes they push it and they just keep pushing it until it stops moving. They're all over the place. They're challenging everything that you say. And you're probably starting to see that in 5th grade now. I don't know. 5th grade is when it starts to turn. I don't want to say they turn on you, but they do start to develop that adolescence mode where you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I like this. But they're ready for, I know, when I have my 5th graders, at the end of April, we'll have them over for move-up day. So the 5th grade will come over to the 6th grade wing, and we'll give them a tour of this area, and they'll meet the teachers, and they're going to kind of hear about the transition, and they're ready. They are ready. And in fact, we used to do move-up day in January, and the 5th grade teachers begged us to move it to later in the year, because once they come over for move-up day, they're done. They don't want to go back. They're done with grammar school, and grammar school is wonderful, but they're just kind of past that season, and they don't want to do it anymore. So we pushed it to the end. Okay, so from an education classical model standpoint, what's the difference? Why are we going to a new division? It's called the dialectic school now. Why? Well, what you've been doing in the grammar school right now, and let me say this. Every subject is a little bit different. So when I say you're moving from grammar to dialectic, that doesn't mean we're done with grammar. I mean, I teach math, right? And I honestly don't believe that the grammar phase of mathematics is over until Algebra 2, which is in the rhetoric school technically, but you're still learning the grammar of mathematics until you get Algebra 2. So it's not a definitive line like, oh, we're done with that and now we're this. It's just, it's time developmentally for the transition, and a lot of the subjects were ready for that transition. But so right now they've been learning the grammar of the subjects, they're memorizing things and writing things that they don't necessarily even completely able to comprehend yet or draw parallels with. Things are very concrete, and they're asking, so like when they read in literature, they're who, what, when, what's going on, like what are the concrete things of the story. When we get to the dialectic school, we really start to focus on logic, making deductions, anticipating what's going to happen, asking the questions why rather than just who, what, when. Like reading a book and seeing if there's foreshadowing and what they might be foreshadowing, and starting to ask those questions. We do teach them a lot of reasoning in the middle school. I don't know if you guys are there yet in the 5th grade with your kids, but my children started making very bold statements about things that were absolutes, and then they had absolutely nothing to defend what they were saying. But by golly, this is what it is. Okay, why? I'm not sure. Well, then don't make an absolute statement about it, right? And so we start to work in the 6th grade all the way through middle school on teaching them how to form a bold statement in your head, come up with supporting arguments for it, so that when you make the statement, then you can stand behind it. And of course, the foundation of that is our faith, right? So we spend a lot of time in the middle school. We reset the timeline for our history and literature and Bible studies ends at the end of 6th grade. So we finish, I think Lincoln dies at the end of 5th grade, and then we pick up there and finish the U.S. history, and we read literature around that time period, and we get through Acts in the Bible, and a lot of application for Bible in 6th grade, and then at 7th grade we start in ancient history again, and they begin at the beginning of the Old Testament, and we really root them in why that the Bible is God's truth, and how it is a resource for truth, and how we can go to it for answers for everything. And so, my own children, my experience in my house, 7th and 8th grade were very formative years for them in recognizing and being able to defend that God's word is true, and then therefore a reliable source for everything else that they learn throughout the rhetoric school. So that's really neat, and that's kind of what we're working on. So that's just kind of a snippet. The logic phase, they ask lots of why questions. Why? We want them to be able to. We live in a time where they don't have to do a lot of deductive reasoning if they choose not to. I mean, we have smartphones and everything's just kind of easy access. They don't have to solve as many problems as we had to solve when we were kids. I mean, I even think about myself, right? If I'm at one place, I'm going to watch a volleyball game somewhere and I don't know where I'm going, and then I want to get from there to another place I'm familiar with, I don't even think anymore about how I might get there, where I would have 20 years ago had to try to figure out, well, what's the best way to get there from here? Now my phone tells me, right? So all these little things that they don't have to do. You don't even have to remember phone numbers anymore. Y'all remember your best friend's phone number when you were a kid? I don't even know my own kids' phone numbers, which is terrible. Maybe I shouldn't confess that. Strike that from the video. This is not an overnight change. We recognize that. Like, we don't think that on August 23rd they're going to wake up and be dialectic students. Like, that is not our anticipation. 6th grade is a soft transition year. Okay, so we are going to hold them to a middle school standard, but we're going to teach them. We're going to redirect. First quarter is just kind of the grace-filled quarter where we are setting the boundary, but reminding them, hey, don't forget this. You've got to do this. We don't expect that they walk in and know how to do it. There's a lot of training because there's a lot of transition for them. They're changing classes. They have a lot of teachers that they have to get to know. You know, before you just would open up your headmaster and be like, ooh, this is the teacher I got this year. But now, I mean, you're going to have 4 or 5 teachers, and you're going to be rotating throughout the day, and you're going to have different friends with you throughout the day, depending on, which group you're paired with for that block. You have an elective teacher that changes every quarter, and so you've got to figure out, well, I've got to go to art this time, and then next quarter I'm going to go to drama. And so all of that is new to them, and we recognize that we have to coach them on that. April and I talked a lot, like when I first started this job, when she first started, we didn't really recognize that this is like a new school for them too. And so I just was kind of like, oh, well, they've been here since kindergarten, but it really, now we treat them a lot like they're new students, because they are. This is a new space, new faces, everything's just kind of seems new. And we do have some differences that they have to adjust to. So that's just, I don't know why. Forget that. Okay, so I bet one of your first questions is, and this is also one of my questions, usually I have a picture of all of our 6th grade team, but the Lord is doing some crazy things in the dialectic school that are super good for our team. Coach Sizemore, the legend coach, he served in the military for 20 plus years. He has 2 Purple Hearts, and then he came to Caldwell, and he's been here for 25 years, and he announced that he was going to retire this year. And I know that is a huge blow. The kids love him, but after 50 years of serving our country and our school, I feel like the man deserves a little bit of time off. I will say this, and he hasn't promised anything, but I have a hard time believing that we're going to be able to keep him completely away from the school. And so my goal is to see if maybe he would consider hosting a Bible study for the boys in the morning, or still coming out and being involved in some of our living history days and activities. I know that he would ultimately want to still be plugged into the school. Mrs. Smith has twin boys that are graduating this year, and she's just going to step away from the workplace so that she's more available to travel with her husband, because he's going to start to do some more international travel if they open the borders. And so she's not going to be with us. And then Mrs. Kirkman has decided that she's going to step away because of the restructuring that we're doing. We're going to move 6th grade to a humanities block. Right now, it's kind of, Coach has been, like I said, he's been the legend, and he's taught science and history and Bible. But it makes more sense for us to align 6th grade just like we do with 7th and 8th, and have a humanities block. We did this past year add logic as a class. It was a kind of a subclass that got paired into comp and literature, and that just created some problems with them getting their curriculum done. So we've decided to block humanities in 6th grade just like we do in 7th and 8th grade. So they'll have a double block class where they'll do literature, they'll do history, they'll do Bible, and they'll do logic all together. And that's what we do in 7th and 8th grade as well. So that's going to happen. I have already interviewed several people for this position, and there are some great candidates. In fact, it's going to be hard to pick. So I'm excited about who might be filling that slot out. And then the 6th and 7th grade writing teacher is working on filling that spot too. Several of the people that I interviewed for the humanities job are interested in both. And then math and science are going to be paired together, and so that will be a position that I'm filling. And actually, Brittany West is recruiting somebody right now for me who it looks like a good candidate. So I'm super excited. I know that the Lord is, I just know that this is his school, and he brings good people. I know my story, and I'll tell you just for 2 seconds to maybe help you know that we can trust him. I wasn't sure I was going to come back to teach. Charlie Plasman was going into kindergarten, half-day kindergarten, and I just kind of thought, I don't know, Lord, maybe you're calling me to help, because I was tutoring a lot of Caldwell kids, and he just kind of laid it on my heart. I bumped into the head of school that was on campus that week, and he said, hey, just if you're thinking maybe in a year you might start, put your resume on file here just so we have it, so that when an opening comes. And so I was like, oh, okay, you know what, I'll go ahead. I didn't have a resume, I hadn't worked for a long time, I stayed home with my kids, pulled my resume together, and I swung by on my way out of town, dropped it off. Before I even got back to my car, Adam Greer was calling me because the morning that I dropped off my resume, one of the math teachers in the rhetoric school had resigned for the following year. It's like, that's God, and that's just God, right? He's totally coordinated that. So as a leader, I just trust that he brings the right people, because I do think this is his work. So more to come as we hire. I'm excited for y'all to meet those people, but I have some amazing candidates already, so I'm excited about the additions to our team. Okay, so in the classroom, we talked a little bit about the humanities and math. I do, the literature that we read, just like you guys are doing in 5th grade, corresponds with the history timeline that we're doing, and I told you that we're in the New Testament in 6th grade. There's a lot of questions typically about math. Yes, okay. 6th grade is, on most years, that's where we kind of start to say, hey, let's kind of figure out who our strongest, most natural aptitude math students are, and we kind of push them a little bit further. 6th grade is 6th grade math / pre-algebra for everyone. It's just that the fastest track students, the students who have the strongest aptitude, are the ones that sometimes complete pre-algebra in 6th grade. And I say sometimes, it's been every year. This year we had a hiccup with that, but this is what the track will say. I want you to see this is really important, because I get lots of questions about this. I want you to see that pre-algebra, this is a pretty significant track until you get to, like, your options. Notice that there's no options once you get on this track except the fast track, right? So your pre-algebra, algebra in 7th, geometry, it's very accelerated in 8th grade, and that's an honors rhetoric class. So this is they team teach with the rhetoric school. So your 8th graders will be taking the same tests that the rhetoric kids are taking in that honors class. So this is a legitimate rhetoric honors class. Honors algebra 2 in 9th, pre-calculus in 10th, AP stats. So this is until 11th grade. Once you're on that fast track, you're on that fast track. AP stats. These two, we're actually talking about switching these two, but that's not finalized yet. But and then AP calculus typically is what. So the fastest track kids usually go AP honors pre-calculus, AP stats, AP calculus. When you graduate from high school, it is not necessary to get into a good college to have 2 AP math classes, unless if your child is wired for STEM, wants to go into engineering, wants to focus on that. But at the end of the day, that's not necessarily, it's not necessary. I have a math degree from a good college, and I didn't take any AP math classes in high school. And I did just fine. So that's an aggressive math track. Notice that if you aren't in the fastest track starting in 6th grade, you still can end up taking, so you still end up on the honors track here, and still take one of our AP math classes. So that middle track is still a pretty strong track. So that's a lot of questions. I also get a question about how do we place people in 6th grade. Hear me say this when I say it's fluid. It's fluid in 6th grade, because there's so much changing on that. Some of them will start to hit puberty, some of them will mature. A lot of times I'll have parents in 5th grade parents say to me, okay, just brace yourself. And then their child gets to 6th grade and I'm like, brace myself for what? They're great, they're doing everything they're supposed to. A lot of times, kids that start to get squirrely in 5th grade really thrive in the environment where they're changing classes. They have different teachers. There's more, they kind of step up to the responsibility, like, oh, wow, I like this idea that I just feel like a big kid being able to have different teachers, different classes, rotating and doing all of that. So it's very fluid in 6th grade. We try to figure out, we typically place them at the beginning of, in the summer, really. It's the same math packet regardless of what you're doing. We place them in the summer into class, and then when they get into the classroom, throughout that first quarter, we kind of assess. Part of what we are looking at, 3 things. Aptitude, which is easy to see from standardized testing and things like that. So we can see who has the aptitude. Maturity, and y'all might laugh when I say maturity in 6th grade, because, maturity for 6th grade. Are they able to make sure they have everything that they need and take their work home? Are they sitting in class in a posture of learning and being able to focus on what the teacher's saying? And then work ethic is really the thing. Like the pace of that fastest math track is significant. And so they have to want it. You can't just want it. They have to want it because the homework load is higher in the fastest math track. They are going to be required to do more. So where if they might only have 15 minutes of homework in the regular track, the fastest math track, they might have an hour. They might have 45 minutes depending on what's going on, especially as I'm not thinking 6th grade, but I'm thinking as they get older, right? I've got a daughter in AP Stats, and family weekends, APs are out, like APs are APs. You can't control the pace of an AP. I'm an AP teacher. This is what I have to get from A to Z in the time that I have, no questions asked, because that's what's on the test. So it's not something that we can slow down, okay? So just thinking about all of that, we ask that you trust us. Every year, we switch kids around once the school year starts from one track to the other, every year. We have kids that are in the slower track that we're like, wow, they're crushing it. We're gonna move them up. And we have kids in the fastest track that are just not getting it done, and we slide them down. And it happens every single year. We also have kids who flourish and blossom during 6th grade math, in 6th grade, and we say, hey, you know what? I think you can do this. We're gonna bump you up to algebra next year. The difference in the two classes is only about 15 to 20% content, and it's really just a deeper dive. So most of our kids that transition from, I shouldn't say most, I can't think of anybody that didn't, that after 6th grade math we said, hey, we're gonna put you in algebra, they've all flourished. And so that's another time where we can just kind of say, hey, we see some growth and development here, and we think that you need to be on that track. I'm ultimately going to have them in 12th grade, and so I want to make sure that I have the kids I should have, and I want to protect the kids that don't need to be in there. And every year I'll tell you, but right now I've got 3 faces in mind. I have 15 kids in my class this year, and there are 3 of them there that are literally drowning because it's too much. We're dragging them along across the senior finish line, but I encourage you to trust the process. Okay, what else? This is this exciting time because they finally get to put on a jersey if they're athletes. If they're fine arts, they get to perform in plays. They get to perform on the choir, in the band, whatever it is that their thing. I always get questions about this. 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. It's not the same for 6th grade. We kind of ease you in on your opportunities, but the 6th grade is able to in the fall. The girls are able to participate in volleyball. The boys are able to participate in soccer and cross country for everybody. Thank you. Keep nodding. That helps me. In the winter, there's basketball for both the boys and the girls. Not until 7th grade can they swim. When they get to 7th grade, they can start swimming. I don't know if you know, but we won some state championship medals this year in swimming and in volleyball, and we're crossing our fingers for some baseball this spring. And then in the spring, the girls can participate in soccer, the boys can participate in baseball, and then starting in 7th grade, they can participate in track. So it's really a fun chance. And I mean, it's so cute to see them because they're allowed to wear their jerseys on game day, home game day, and the 6th graders are so excited. I encourage them to try out and it's really a fun opportunity for the 6th graders to start to get to know the older kids. And then literally, in a blink of your eye, they're going to be the older kid. My Charlie plays baseball, and when I looked at him last year, we only got to play 1 game last year because of COVID, but he was so tiny, and I was literally saying, Barrett, that guy could eat him. I'm so serious. That third baseman, I think, could eat him for a snack. And then now he's kind of bigger, and then next year he's going to be the one eating the little snack. So it's so crazy how much their bodies change in middle school, and it's really actually super fun to watch. Okay, what else? In the arts, okay, so they're going to have a taste in 6th grade of all of the different fine arts that we offer. We do a wheel in 6th grade for electives, and so they do A, B, C, D. Everybody does it for a quarter. Everybody takes art, everybody takes band, everybody takes choir, and everybody takes drama. And honestly, I hear no complaints from them. I think they enjoy it. And it's supposed to give them a little taste of what each one looks like, so that maybe something that they would be interested in, but they would be afraid to try, since they have to try it, they might say, hey, you know what? I really liked drama. I want to try out for the play. Or Mrs. Twick is super fun. I want to sing for her on the choir. And so they circle through each one. I do try to give them some diversity on who they're in those classes with. But it's just quarter by quarter, and so it's a good chance for them to get a little taste of everything. And then starting in 7th grade, they get to kind of choose. We don't really specialize, and if you have a particularly strong art student, we have some amazing, talented artists in our school. Rhetoric school is when you can really start to hone in on that. We have advanced art classes, and then we have the same thing for choir and band. Middle school is really just kind of like, hey, let's just get a little taste, try some different things, experiment, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and then when we get to rhetoric school, you can kind of hyper-focus. And then in their faith, this should have been the first slide, note to self for next time. How do we develop their faith? Of course, like every class is through a biblical lens. I mean, you know, Brittany teaches science, and what a cool class to teach. And so many people would say, oh, well, science and Christian faith, that's hard to know. Like, God is super cool. And he reveals himself in science all the time. And Brittany and Dennis do a good job of, like, getting the kids excited about that. I mean, they have, I know that my kids come home and are like, Mom, how neat, like, how totally cool is that God did that? Yes, totally cool. And then, of course, they're studying the Bible in their humanities classes, but when we talk about history and literature, we're looking at all of that through a biblical lens, too. Math is harder to get them excited about faith, but I literally, so, like, I say this, I'm going to bore y'all with this, too, but I say, like, okay, so there's a number on the number line 2, and then there's a number on the number line 3. Those are two very concrete numbers. But then there's an infinite amount of numbers between those two numbers. How cool is that? That is like, and then usually I get a similar response from my seniors. They're like, are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. That's so amazing. Like, that's so amazing. Okay, then also we have Forum. We're talking about potentially calling it Chapel next year, but it is a time in the middle school where we come together. We haven't been able to do it this year, so I've been making recordings, which is the bane of my existence. And I hate videos of myself. I hate hearing myself recorded, but this is how we've had to do it. We are in our homerooms worshiping, but typically in a normal year, we will all come together in here or in the commons, and we worship together for about the first 15 minutes. And I don't know about you, Brittany, but it is such a good, like, it's so good for the soul to hear. The sweet, sweet voices of grammar in the assembly are sweet, and I've never gotten through a Soli Deo Gloria over there without crying. But it is so knock your socks off special to hear middle school kids worship the Lord together. And there are days where, as a teacher, we need to hear that because it reminds us, like, yes, Lord, this is your work, and you're working in this space. And so that's really fun. And I sometimes we usually shut the lights off because they're so insecure in middle school, and the idea of singing in front of everybody is really painful. But they get into it. And even last year, we had a worship team that decided that they wanted to help with that, and 15 people showed up the first day. And then COVID shut that down, but COVID is not winning. We're going to have that worship team again next year. And then we kind of talk about different things. This year, we did For Such a Time as This for a while. Then we've been focusing on old hymns. And the teachers have been sharing their favorite old hymn and why, and where that focuses in on Scripture. So we do spend some time corporately doing that. And then over the years, we've had teachers just come to me. I'll pray and I'll say, Lord, the 7th grade girls really need a Bible study right now. Like, I would love so much. And then the Lord, I'll have a teacher say, hey, the Lord's put on my heart this Bible study I want to do with this group of girls. And I'm like, this is the answer to prayer. This is exactly what we've been praying for. So lots of times there will be little Bible studies going on. In homeroom, we spend some time. This week we're focusing on devotions for Holy Week and what's going on this week. And so they kind of talk about that. And I don't micromanage their homerooms. And I know that the teachers have each independently brought in different devotionals or books that they feel like would be good for the kids to work through together, and they read and share that. So that's what we're doing in their faith. You can imagine why this picture is here, yes? Just strap on your seatbelt, because it is an emotional roller coaster to raise a middle school person. And literally, in 15 minutes, it can go from the best day of their life to I hate everything about everything in my entire life. This is the worst thing ever. And don't get on the roller coaster with them. Barrett and I will sit across from each other at dinner, and Soph sits right here, and he would just look at me and be like, what is happening? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. They're so charged emotionally. Everything is driven by their emotions. And your job as parents is to not get on the emotional train with them and then talk them through it. Okay, let's calm down. Let's wait until this emotion passes, and then let's talk about this reasonably. They love to use generalizations. Everybody in 6th grade has a phone except for me. Not true. Not true. Everybody in the middle school has Instagram but me. Not true. Not true. Everybody is allowed to go this except for me. Nope, that's not true either. What's really important about middle school is community. And I encourage you guys, and I don't know how tightly knit you guys are as parents, but I encourage you to network with each other, because you need to know for yourself that you're not the only one going through it, and you need to know when you're swimming upstream that you are not swimming upstream alone, right? Angela Kay and I have been doing this a long time together. You need to know when you're swimming upstream that you're not swimming upstream alone. Raising kids raising Christian children is swimming upstream. And there are going to be decisions that you have to make that are not going to be popular with them. And it is so good to know that you're not doing it by yourself. Okay. Experience the most brutal of teachers, but you learn. I mean, we all know this, right? This is the time to let your kids make mistakes. I can promise you one thing from me. You're not going to get judgment from me. I'm not going to look at a mistake that your child makes and say, oh, well, Kim must be the worst parent ever. No. You're never going to get that from me. I have 4 kids, and it is like literally when something happens, and I'll think to myself, oh yeah, I've been there, or by the grace of God, I haven't had to do that one. That is literally what you're going to hear from me. I am 1 millisecond away from sitting exactly where you're sitting in that moment, and I know that. If anything happened, 4 kids, I'm just so humbled to know that literally anything can happen. I know that anything can happen with any one of my kids. And they've all been trained in the same house, they've all been reared with the same words of wisdom, we have prayed over them the same way. But they're sinners, and they're becoming adults. So I don't know, but I know that the minute I say that will never happen in my house, it will, right? So I am telling you, I can promise you that. I am not going to judge you when your kid makes a mistake. I can also promise you that sometime between the beginning of 6th grade and the end of 8th grade, your child is going to make a mistake. And whether it comes to my attention or not, we're probably going to have a conversation. I will probably have a conversation with each one of you at some point in middle school. Whether it's because your child was in a group where this was happening, or that this was said in a classroom and I need to bring it to your attention. I want you to know that I want that relationship. I feel like our relationship is starting right now. And I know all of my friends, this has been the hardest year for 6th grade for me, because I didn't get to have this meeting with my 6th graders last year. And so there are families that I haven't been able to meet yet because of COVID. And that's really hard, because I want that personal relationship. I want to have all these positive interactions to start, so that when I have to call you and tell you, yesterday was Ritz crackers in the bathroom, I won't get into that, but when I have to call and tell you, hey, this happened, this is what the consequence is, we have history that's all positive, and that we have a good relationship, so you don't feel like I'm saying, it's not how it works. I also encourage my parents to tell me what's going on at home when it's something that's heavy. Brittany can attest to this. I can't tell you how many times we'll start the day, and then she'll float in my, hey, we'll pick on Charlie. Hey, something's wrong with Charlie today. Like, do you know anything going on in Charlie's world? And I'll say, no, I haven't really heard anything. And then she'll say, okay, she's just off. So she'll leave, and then like an hour later, Joy will come in and she'll say, Charlie Glassman, like, what's going on there today? And I'm like, nah, you know what? You're the second person to say something. So, hey, Barrett, Charlie seems a little off today. Is anything, Mom's out of town, Grandma's sick, she's in the hospital, it's not good at our house right now. Makes total sense. So then I tell my teachers, hey y'all, special love for Charlie today. Things things are bad at home right now. Like, things are just cattywampus. My man needs a little extra TLC today. It happens all the time. Pets dying. Mom, I joke about, I mean, not to say, I didn't say that to boost myself at home. Like, Barrett can handle the house when I'm not there. But it is different, right? Like, they may have cupcakes for lunch, but but when mom's out of town, it's just different, right? Things happen like that. Pets for sure are a big thing. When you're losing a pet, you know, if there's a sick grandparent, they carry the weight of this. I had a little girl have an anxiety attack last week and come out of class, and when I talked to her, it's because one of her mom's best friends is at end stages of cancer, and she's carrying that. So for us to know that is good on this end, because we spend so many hours with them. We can love them better on this end too. So hopefully we'll have a kind of relationship where you feel like you can send me a text or an email and say, hey, KP, this is what's going on at my house today, just so you know. All right, fun, there's field trips. We are praying. We signed the contract with Fort Caswell. We're going to the beach next year. Come, COVID be gone, right? We take the 6th grade to Fort Caswell in the fall, and they study marine biology and science, and it's a very fun trip. When you interview the seniors, a lot of them will tell you Italy was one, the beach trip was number 2. Like, they love the beach trip. This year, because we couldn't go, we are going to take the 7th grade on that beach trip too, so that they don't miss it, since it is a tradition and a favorite. But the way it's set up, the barracks and everything, they'll be with their grade. They won't be blended. We do homeroom challenges. In fact, we're doing an Easter egg hunt today, and the SLT team's been working really hard to make it fun. Just the competition, it's so fun to hear them. I mean, if you're in the hallways when it gets heated, and you would think it'd just be the kids, but oh no. There are teachers who talk smack to other teachers about the homeroom competitions. Actually, she always wins, and so everybody's after her. She's got to turn her back. We do Odyssey, which is like classical school field day, basically. It's going to look a little bit different this year, but we are doing it, so we're super excited. Competitions out throughout the week for mind, body, and soul, and the kids love it. It's just an opportunity to kind of get outside of the classroom and still do some fun academic stuff and enjoy each other's company. Living history days are big for 6th grade. You've been doing those all the way through grammar school, but we still do them, 4 of them in 6th grade. They do a decade day. They do a war museum day. We just had very cool. The community that has war memorabilia brings it to the school, and we set it up like a museum, and they kind of walk around. And I hope Dennis will come back for that, because he's got some really cool stuff. Mrs. Kolb's husband brought a ton of stuff in this year too. So that's really fun. We do Immigration Day. That's my least favorite day, because I have to dress up as the Statue of Liberty on that day. But that was not in my job description when I signed up for the middle school principal. We do that in the fall, where they pretend that they're on the boat, and then they come over, and it's Ellis Island, and they go through that whole process, which is really neat. And then we have a Wild West Day, when we're starting to explore the Western frontier, and they get to preach, and we bring in real cowboys. There still are a few around here, and they come in and they teach them how to lasso, and they kind of put on a show for them, so it's really, really fun. 717, it's probably something that you've heard about, but it starts in 6th grade, so dads, I encourage you, you'll get an email from the 717 committee. Please take a serious consideration, even if you can't commit to being there every week, even if there's just one event that you can do. It was started by dads many years ago, because moms are typically the ones that are on campus volunteering for lunch, not always, but they're typically the ones that are coordinating that stuff. And the presence of dads on campus serving at the school is so important for our boys to see. It's so important for our community. And it's good for the dads to get to know each other too. So 717 is established for that. It is no frills. Like if somebody asks you to have a 717 gathering at your house, the only rule 717 has is it can't be fancy. So like Pinterest out the window. No Pinterest with 717. You take a bag of pretzels, you dump them in a bowl, and then you put Capri Suns on your island, and that is it. Like, you're not allowed to do Pinterest for 717. It is freedom. Get involved. They do lots of fun. That's a DR thing, so it's 6 through 12. They do dad dog days, so they'll come out here during lunch, DR lunches, and they'll grill hot dogs, and they'll interact with the kids and feed them some hot dogs. And then they disappear, so it's like an hour in the middle of the day. They do ice skating, and they do sludge wars, and I don't think we're going to be able to have that. That's usually a fun kickoff for the 5th grade. It's the first event that this 5th grade is typically invited to, but COVID has shut that down this year. But please be on the lookout for it and encourage you to take, just think about jumping in there. And then JCL, that's through the Latin department, and that's a really fun event that they spend a lot of time in the spring preparing for, making projects and whatever to go compete against other classical schools in North Carolina. It's typically on the campus of Wake Forest or Chapel Hill, and there's everything from making jewelry and mosaics to, they do a, help me, what's the race they do? The chariot race, I can't think of the word. They do chariot races, and it's a really fun time. I'm excited. Again, we didn't do it, we haven't had it for 2 years, but we're rolling that back out next year. So fun stuff to do. Okay, differences in this is kind of what you need to know. What changes? Well, our hours. School starts at 8:15 and runs to 3:15. They have to be, they're tardy after 8:15, and we track tardies, okay? 5 tardies is a detention. That we resets every quarter. 3:15 is when we're dismissed, except on Friday we get out at 2 o'clock, which is, you guys, again, you guys changed this year, right? Okay. Yes, how could I forget? Friday carpool is so fun, isn't it? Our lunch is from 11:55 to 12:25, so for the first time ever, your kids get to eat actually during lunchtime. I always used to laugh when the grammar school kids would eat at 1:15. Okay, uniform, daily uniform looks pretty similar. Chino, shorts, and a polo. It doesn't have to be Lands' End anymore, but it can't have logos. It's not dry fit. It needs to be a cotton chino and a cotton polo and chinos in the color wheel of Caldwell. We did that just because we recognize that, first of all, Lands' End can be a little bit expensive, but also just they grow so much, and just easier to give you guys some options. So that's the daily uniform. For girls, there's some chino sports and shorts. It just depends on the year. There's a rage in the rhetoric school right now to wear pants, which they've never worn the pants before. Every once in a while it's a pleated skirt, then it flips back over to the cargo skirt. It just depends on the year. I can't guide you on that, just depends on what your kids decide they think is comfortable. Official uniform changes in the dialectic school. And I'm going to go ahead on record and warn you, the very first time you need it is typically Veterans Day, but we always have an official uniform day in the early October to make sure everybody has all the pieces they need before Veterans Day. So for girls, it's a pleated blue skirt, and they love the yellow vest. They love it. And a blue button down and flats, black or brown flats. And for the guys, it's khaki pants, a blue button down, and a tie, a blue and gold tie. There's not a specific one you have to have. It just has to be blue, gold, or blue and gold. And they may wear a regular tie or a bow tie, and it is the first time you have to teach them typically how to do it, and it is hilarious on the first day because nobody knows how to tie a tie. Carpool, no more numbers, and I'm not even gonna pretend that I know what this is gonna look like next year. So I'll tell you when it comes. It just depends on COVID. I don't know if it'll stay the way it is this year, just to be determined at this point. But it's more of we dismiss them and then they load the cars. It's not like the drive-up numbers like you guys are used to. You will be, the kids, I don't even need to say why, but they need to change into PE uniforms starting in 6th grade. We're very lucky in 6th grade because PE is at the end of the day. So they literally just go home, which is actually very fortunate for you because that means they typically wear their uniform home, which means you get to wash it. Because what I've come to find out as a mother of my 20-year-old told me just recently when he was home that he never brought his uniform home and that they actually would just throw them in this one pile in the locker room and everybody would just take one. Is that the most disgusting thing that you have ever heard? I was like, I did not need to know that. But you'll get an order form in the summer for the PE uniform, and our expectation is that they will wear it for PE. It's part of their participation grade. Technology. This is a little bit different. You guys probably are. Your kids already have logins because of COVID, but we do spend some time training them on how to send an appropriate email. You would be surprised at some of the emails that I get. Yo, Mrs. Plasman. Yo. So we work on that. Our phone policy is no phones during the day. So when they're allowed to have them at school, because we recognize a lot of them launch somewhere else after, but from 7:30 until 3:15, their phones are supposed to be powered down, which means if you need to get in touch with them, they have multiple options. You can call the office just like our parents used to do, and I promise you, we get the message to them. You can send them a message through us or through text. We will let them check. So let's just say you say, hey, Grandma's having surgery today. I'll text you when she's out and everything's okay. They can totally just go to their teacher or come to the office and say, hey, can I check to see if everything's okay with my grandparent? Absolutely. I mean, we're not trying to prevent you from communicating with your children. What we are trying to do is not be like that. I don't have time to focus on policing technology and also the things that are out there to have them exposed to. That's not what we're here for. We're here for education. They do have Chromebooks that they use in class. We do block the chat room so that they can't chit-chat during class instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing. We also have technology violations and warnings. We're trying to coach them. We recognize that this is a new thing, but technology is the age that they live in, so they have to know how to do it productively. They're going to be taking notes on their computers in college, and they're going to be typing papers and all of that. So this is kind of a training ground. So we will coach them on it. You guys already have BARC, right? So when that continues, I get a monitoring report every once in a while. I will talk to them if I see something come through, like, hey, why were you sending messages to your friend at 1:20 when you should have been in math class? Sometimes they share things they shouldn't share. We talk about that. We have I think it's an opportunity to train them. If it's something egregious, you'll hear from me. You'll see that I reviewed it on BARC. I can see that you reviewed it. So if I see that you reviewed it and I've reviewed it and it's not egregious, I'm not going to call you. If it's something concerning, you'll hear from me right away.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but do you
Yeah.
see what time it is? It's 9:20.
Dang it!
Oh, dang it.
Why did you smack me?
I'm sorry.
I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Frequently asked questions, homework load. It's not tremendous in dialectal school. We're very intentional about that. I will say, if they have a lot of homework, the question you need to ask is this: did they give you time in class? Usually the answer is yes. Okay. Writing, most papers, there's time to write the paper in class. Math homework, maybe, but they have breaks so they can get it done too. So they should not, if they have a lot of homework, you need to ask them if they had time in class and how they manage their time. That's the first question. And then have a conversation with us. But we don't pile on the homework in the dialectal school. What is the ARC Academic Resource Center? If your child needs tutoring or is struggling with study skills, we can help. Joe Fairburn will help take care of that for us. Joe helps with struggling academic students. We come alongside. Usually you're going to hear from us first. We meet once a week and run an academic report so we can track who's where and what needs to be done to help them. And then what do you do if you don't know what to do? Email me, Donna Shaw, Elizabeth Strickland, Brittany. No, don't email Brittany. Ask. Just, that's part of the partnership. Okay, nothing to fear. You only have 1,009 days of middle school. Count down right now, 1,009 days and counting. All right, I'm so sorry I ran over. Thank you for saying something. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing? I'm sure you will have more questions. Your questions will start popping up over the summer. Don't hesitate to email me. You'll start to wonder, schedules will come out in August, but please don't hesitate to ask. I want the partnership starts right now. Okay? Anything? Okay. Let me pray for you before you go. Lord, thank you for this time together. I thank you for the opportunity to share about this school that's yours. I just pray that you'll bring teachers that love you so, and it's just oozing out of them so that they can love on these sixth graders next year. We're trusting you with that. Lord, I'm so excited about these new partnerships. I pray that you will just help us together continue to point these children to you through these tough years of adolescence, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that these students, that the seeds that we are sowing will start to grow in this soil, Father, and that they will just bloom in such a beautiful way for you over the next several years. Help us to know how to do that. Help us to continue to sow the seeds. Help us to water, but we know, Lord, that they're yours. And so we trust you with them. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thank y'all.